All right, Copite 7 Kimi is at it again with more updated specs for the RTX 4000 series. And there are a few little changes here that are a bit interesting, but let's dive right in. So their specs for the RTX 4090 is that it should be the 8102 GPU, and they're going with 16,384 FP32 units, a 384-bit bus with 21 gigabits per second of 24 gigabytes of GDDR5X memory. Now, I believe this is slightly higher than the previous leak, meaning that this 8102, this is still not what would be its maximum utilization, not 100% of the GPU die. So it seems like they're holding some of it back for a 4090 Ti, or maybe they'll call it a Titan, who knows. But this does seem to be slightly increased compared to the previous leak we had seen. Now, when we jump down to the RTX 4080, there's some interesting stuff here. One thing is, this is still consistent with what we've been seeing of dropping down to the 8103 GPU for the 4080 and not being a cut down 102. And then, okay, 10,240 FP32, 256-bit bus. Now, he's putting question marks here, and I hope these question marks end up meaning that Copite is wrong, because, okay, 18 gigabits per second, 16 gigabytes of GDDR6. Well, I like 16 gigabytes of memory on the 4080. I think that that's a good thing. But I don't like if they went down to GDDR6 because like the 3080 had GDDR6X. So I'm hoping this question mark ends up being wrong there, although we have heard that the 4000 series should have an extremely large, way larger than the 3000 series L2 cache, which perhaps could work like AMD's Infinity Cache and allow you to have slower memory, but still actually perform well. So I hope that's the case, especially if this RTX 4070 spec is true, because previously we had seen it, I think at 192-bit memory bus. If we're down to 160-bit, that is a huge decrease. That also means that it would only be equipped with 10 gigabytes of memory. And this time we are seeing it not even with a question mark at 18 gigabit per second GDDR6. And also, once again, do not expect a lower MSRP. Well, I don't think anybody was expecting a lower MSRP unless they were completely insane. I could live with actually matching the 3000 series MSRPs and, maybe being available at those MSRPs, without having to wait a year and a half or 2 years after the launch. But I don't know, man. We'll see. I'm expecting higher MSRPs myself. We'll see what happens. Now, the video cards article here. I can't think. Out of the way. I meant to actually make myself smaller, but I just kind of slid my head into the corner. There we go. Anyway, green screens are fun. The point is, there's a video cards article reporting on this that has an interesting chart here that I think is pretty useful, because it's taking these specs and it's now showing us, first of all, like how many processors, the CUDA cores were bumped up compared to the previous generation. So it looks like the 4090 is rumored to now have 56% more CUDA cores than the 3090. The 4080 has 18% more CUDA cores than the 3080, and the 4070 has 21% more CUDA cores than the 3070. So that's a bit of an interesting spec, and it looks like they're also tracking what I was saying here, which is our previous rumor only had us at 126 SMs, this going up to 128, which is why, I thought that was a slightly higher number here on the 4090. Anyway, we've also got some rumored power draw specs. We'll see what comes of that. A lot of people are dreading what we could see here. But we are expecting these in late Q3, early Q4, and again, there hasn't been any change to the rumor that we would see these coming out, October, November, December, starting out with that 4090. Let's see what happens. Okay. Now, more news. Would you like to see a 6 gigahertz turbo speed on your Intel CPUs? Well, that might be the case according to this Pokemon who seems to know more than the average Pokemon about upcoming Intel CPUs. Now, notice this is a big maybe. 6 gigahertz turbo maybe will appear on one SKU in ETVB mode. Now, what is ETVB mode? More on that in just a second. He says, I guess it should not be a normal SKU. So what is ETVB mode? Well, so it looks like there's been so first of all, there's been reports, even directly from Intel, that they would have enhanced overclocking features with Raptor Lake. And we're now seeing an update to Intel's Extreme Tuning utility. And it says that they're adding per-core OC TVB support, added package OC TVB support, and added efficient E, right? There's your E TVB support. And TVB standing for thermal velocity boost. That's it. Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay. So it looks like there's going to be some kind of efficient thermal velocity boost that will be allowing some sort of really good boosting, possibly up to 6 gigahertz on some sort of special SKU. Now, what could this special SKU be targeted at? Well, remember how we've had with the Ryzen 5000 from AMD, they had their 3D V-Cache version of the 5800X, which had a very increased gaming performance due to that cache. Well, we did see an article that I've already reported on yesterday that Zen 4, right, AMD's upcoming Ryzen 7000 series, will see 3D V-Cache models coming in late 2022, not delaying into 2023. So, if we already get the bump from just, moving to the 7000 series, but then if that 3D V-Cache did have a similar performance jump to what we saw in the 5000 series, then maybe Intel is preparing some kind of crazy gaming CPU here going up to 6 gigahertz. We shall see. Now, also on this topic, we have a bit of information now regarding the Z790 motherboards. So we don't know a lot. Intel hasn't given us a lot of info on what exactly will be different or better about their 700 series motherboards to go along with the Raptor Lake launch. Of course, Raptor Lake should still be compatible with the 600 series motherboards from Alder Lake. But one thing that people had been wondering was if the top-end Z790, would still have DDR4 variants, right? Because this is kind of the interesting thing here where Alder Lake and then now Raptor Lake support both DDR4 motherboards and DDR5 motherboards, whereas AMD's 7000 series will only support DDR5. Well, it is looking like video cards got their hands on which ASRock motherboards are currently in development, and there does look to be a Z790 Pro RS-D4. So it does look like there will still be DDR4 variants here. Now, overall, this whole DDR4 versus DDR5 on the 7000 series question could matter a lot if DDR5 prices stay high. Because, if when Alder Lake launched, the DDR5 motherboards were more expensive. The DDR5 itself was more expensive. So people looking for any sort of a value-oriented build were staying away. However, the DDR5 prices have been coming down, and I'm hopeful that they won't be high enough when 7000 series launches to make moving to that platform kind of cost prohibitive. but we'll again just have to see what happens with that. Now, I'd like to follow up on yesterday's topic of the Intel Arc A380 reviews, because I saw in my comment section some people saying that they had seen some head-to-head benchmarks on YouTube that completely contradicted the review that I was reporting on, where they saw the A380 beating the GTX 1650 in a number of games. Well, I did look up what I think was that benchmark that people were talking about, and one thing I'll say is there didn't seem to be any proof that that person actually had an A380. I'm not trying to say that that was a just made-up benchmark, but I mean, we now have, this is from WCCF Tech, but I'm currently in a Video Cards article. They got their hands on the official press deck for reviewers from Intel. And even Intel claims that their A380 is worse than an RX 6400 in most games. So this, and worse than a GTX 1650. So so this is, again, officially from Intel, who are likely to put this in the best light possible. We do see the A380 win in a couple of games, like in Naraka Blade Point, they're 2 FPS higher than the GTX 1650. Let's see, are there any others where Intel wins here? I mean, this is their own set of benchmarks, so... I mean, I'm scrolling through the data. I guess they tie in Nishan. I have no idea what that is. And then there's also only a few where they're beating the RX 6400. So again, Intel's official data that they're publishing themselves shows the A380 significantly worse than a GTX 1650. And now we'll follow that up with a few other review outlets have their data now. It looks like My Drivers put the A380 against a GTX 1050 Ti, as well as against the 1650 and the RX 6400. And against the 1050 Ti, good news, it looks like the A380 actually does win, except for whatever that game is. It has a 6 at the end, so it's something with the 6 in it. I know, guys, you commented that I can point my phone and do like a Google Translate thing at here, but yeah. You know, I'll leave that as an exercise to the reader, the viewer. Anyway, the point is, it does look better than a 1050 Ti, but it is still, again, in this review, coming out worse than a GTX 1650, other than, of course, as I already explained, the anomalous 3D Mark results, where it looks like Intel is either cheating or, you know, in synthetic benchmarks, or one way the most positive light you could look at this is perhaps this synthetic benchmark shows what the hardware could have been capable of, but the drivers are just not allowing it to produce those results in actual games. The reason why that kind of could be good news is we could perhaps see the fine wine aging as the drivers improve. And, you know, one reason why they could be doing these releases just in China is to get a wide user base and grab a whole bunch of data in real-world gaming and maybe use that in some way to improve their drivers before getting absolutely slammed in Western media outlets with reviews. Anyway, there's another review here, by the way, on a video on Bilibili, where we are once seeing even worse news here. So a while back, I reported that Intel had officially listed resizable bar support as a requirement, a system requirement for their Arc GPU here, and that it might not work well without resizable bar support, and that it was not guaranteed to work on AMD's smart access memory systems. Well, this seems to be some confirmation that Intel's GPU performs worse when paired with an AMD CPU platform. So it looks like what we're seeing here is the red line is the A380, but paired with an AMD CPU, whereas the blue line here is the A380 on an Intel platform. And we can see, and then the green bar, which is set as our performance competitor, is just the GTX 1650. But anyway, it does look like in most but not all of these games, the red bar is lower than the blue bar. In some cases, it's very minor, and we even see one win for the red bar. But in some of these, it's a pretty significant drop when paired with the AMD CPU. So this could be even worse for some systems. Also, it looks like the actual prices these are available at in China is at least currently significantly above the MSRP, which would also make this not even particularly good value, at least at launch. Now, a couple other quick follow-ups here, which is how about AMD's FSR 2.0, which we had always heard would become open source, is now officially open source. The source code has been officially published. Now, don't think that this means, like I want to jump in here. I see this in the comments on all of the FSR 2.0 content that I post. People always jump in the comment section and think, I can't wait for this to be released like FSR 1.0 was, where you could just mod it into games, or you could get like lossless scaling, or Magpie, where you can just run it kind of like RSR does, just at on the final image. The point is that FSR 2.0, despite going open source now, does not operate in the same way that FSR 1.0 did, where it could just be a spatial upscale at the end of the rendering process and easily modded into other games. Everything we know about FSR 2.0 suggests that it requires the developers to actually integrate it into the game, and that AMD says that that could take significant development time, especially if the game hasn't already gone through the process of supporting DLSS 2.0. Because it's still, they claim 3 days of development time, even if they do support DLSS 2.0. So anyway, the point is they have released it open source under the MIT license. This is only a good thing, but don't suddenly expect all of your favorite games to get mods with FSR 2.0 support. Now, FSR 2 does support both DirectX 12 and Vulkan, and it has plugins for Unreal Engine 4.26 and 4.27, and Unreal Engine 5 should be due very soon. And it looks like they also will be available through the Xbox Game Development Kit, but appears to not be available there yet. So, I mean, exciting stuff to see it out there open source, but I did want to just rein in people's expectations on seeing what modders are actually able to do with that. And the last thing I'll mention here is just, it looks like Innosilicon has announced that they've achieved 10,000 megabits per second on LPDDR5X DRAM speeds, which is faster than the official memory spec. I don't want to dive too much into this, but I hope all of you have an excellent day.